Fox News contributor and author of a couple of books, the latest being Why We Fight. Joins us every week at around this time. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, Alex. Happy New Year. It's going to be a doozy.
It sure will, and we're already off to a very fast start with the shutdown, the swearing in of Nancy Pelosi, who earlier today kind of teased the possibility of indicting the president. Mitt Romney, I think, making a fool of himself. Let's start there. And Dr. G, normally we talk about national security stuff, but also you're someone who I think has internalized the America First MAGA agenda as well as anyone. So I do like to get your take on things that fall under that category. And I think Mitt Romney made a big mistake. I think this was a big error putting out this column, which we've spent probably a good 3 or 4 hours already on in the last 2 shows here on Breitbart News Daily. But give me your unvarnished take on it.
This is, when you want to become the new Senator Flake, even before you've been sworn in, this is the epitome of what the spineless rhino culture is. And the fact that his own niece, Ronna McDaniel, called her uncle disappointing for having done this. This is the man who failed twice to become president, wanted desperately to be part of the Trump cabinet, was incredibly obsequious in his words when Mr. Trump endorsed his presidential campaign, and this is how he repays him. He's small-minded, he's petty, he's not a conservative. It's pathetic, and he's already shown himself for who he really is, even before he's sworn in as senator. But he'll be the new Senator Flake, and he's made himself an irrelevance even before he started. One last thing. He typifies what I saw when I was in the White House, that the biggest problem, the reason we have Donald Trump in the White House is because far too many people on the right, on Capitol Hill, actually want the approval of the left. They want the New York Times, they want CNN to be say nice things about them. And that's, in part, what Mitt Romney did with his opinion piece.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sound analysis, and it's very, I think it's pretty similar to what the audience has heard from me. But one thing that's really struck me here, Dr. G, is I used to have respect for Romney as being a smart guy, as being a principled guy. And what I'm seeing here is his pandering to some of the worst people, not just in the country, but also around the world. And looking at some of the statements about national security, I mean, praise for Rex Tillerson, who was chosen over him for Secretary of State. I don't think that, and the suggestion that Mike Pompeo is a inferior Secretary of State. I don't think Rex Tillerson believes that to be the case, to be honest with you. That was very strange. And praise for countries like France and Germany, which is so tone deaf for the Republican Party right now, even if you're not a huge Trump sycophant. I don't think that is a very popular opinion on the right in America at all. Probably not even on in much of the Democratic Party, to be honest, that France and Germany are these paragons of virtue. It was just such a tone-deaf piece. It didn't strike me as very smart. It really didn't.
We can't look into the man's soul, and there's 2 options here. Either there's rank malevolence, and that's the motivation, or, and with regards to his tone deafness, this just could be another example of an individual who utterly and completely lives in a bubble. He has no idea what happened on November the 8th, 2016. He really thinks Merkel, who has failed her country stunningly and is her way out as Chancellor of Germany, is a better example of leadership than Donald Trump, who in the last 2 years has put everything on the table of significance that he promised in record speed. It could just be tone deafness, it could be malevolence, or it could be, just driven by spite because he failed. Let's recall. This was, I have to give credit here, that I was on radio with my show yesterday, and I was watching Rand Paul make comments about Mitt Romney, and he he said something very polite. He said his attitude is less than helpful. Yeah, well, my friend Ron Maxwell, the director who made Gettysburg, he was a little bit more trenchant in his comments, and he said, Mitt Romney, the man who made the second term of President Obama possible. That's who he is. He has shown his true colors, whether it was spite, living in a bubble, being malevolent. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you judge a man by his actions. This, before he's sworn in to do this, tells you he is the epitome of the swamp-dwelling rhino. And if I may,
absolutely, yes.
Can the interviewee interview the interviewer for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we've had the discussion for a long time on the wall and on immigration security. Are you not impressed with the president's stance on the shutdown and his commitment to say we're not going to move until we have border security? Because I know you've been worried in the past.
Sure. So here's my here is my analysis of this, Dr. G, and I'll sum it up. I know because the listeners have heard this a lot, those who have stuck with it. I think the president is I think what he's doing is necessary. I think is the correct move. I think him showing some mettle and backbone is inspiring, and I think it's encouraging. That said, I don't necessarily see the leverage he has, and Pelosi coming out and saying that there will be no funding for the wall troubles me because she's savvy enough to not create a soundbite for herself that the president is going to get to attack her with down the road. So she's convinced she's not going to cave, and I'm concerned the president does not have enough leverage here. I think he's taking a brave stand, a bold stand, a necessary stand, and one that I give him a lot of credit for. I'm just still concerned that ultimately he's not going to get what he came here for unless he goes off the board, and which is why a lot of this audience wants him to do an Oval Office address or hit the road and take some of these ideas to the public, do some rallies. But where do you see this going? Do you see this? Because yes, I agree completely. This has been one of his better moments in recent months in terms of his leadership. But how do we get to the finish line, Dr. G? That's what I am unclear on.
Yeah, I think your analysis is sound. We have a different situation now in terms to the prior shutdown or when Schumer lost the battle of narrative. I think right now it's less a question of who really has, the levers to push the other side over. I think right now it is really going to be a question of a battle of narratives. If the president waits long enough, if we have the continued clear stance from the Democrats that the only reason they're doing this is because really they don't want border security. They prefer to protect illegal aliens and those that are hiding out in sanctuary cities. Then there's a chance. But that tipping of the scales in the battle of the narratives only happens when he does what you just said, when he does an address to the nation, where he goes on a stump speech and he really drives it home that you're choosing between the safety of Americans and a borderless America. That's what has to happen, and we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But he's digging in his heels, and that should be a sign to everyone out there that doubted him on the wall that this is as important to him as it is to us.
Yeah, that's a good sign, and I agree with that. By the way, we cleared a couple of phone lines. If you have questions for Dr. G, I know Dr. G enjoys that very much. Let me go around the horn really quick while we're warming up some of these call boards here, Dr. G. Again, the new show, America First with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, began yesterday on Salem Networks, and I know that everyone, there's many ways to catch up with all the various broadcasts due to on-demand podcasts, stuff like that. I assume you can download some of these things too, Dr. G, so if people can't catch it live, there's other ways to get it.
Our website goes live today. It's sebgorka.com. That's SEBGORKA.com. We're on 120 stations across the nation. Any one of those stations plays it live. We're posting the best segments on YouTube. So just, put it into your favorite search engine, America First, Sebastian Gorka, and you'll find one of the multiple ways to access it.
Wonderful. The good news there, and always enjoy hearing Dr. G on the radio in the captain's chair. Okay, a couple things. So Nancy Pelosi sworn in today, indicating she'd be willing to indict the president. I think that's mostly political calculus. I don't think she really means it, but I think she's got to keep the progressive resistance motivated. But how do you think this changes Washington, and how do you, in particular, when you're talking about national security issues, your area of expertise, what changes today at noon?
Well, look, I think that the indictment, the comment is, as you said, it's political theater. It's clear from DOJ opinion, from precedents, and just the tradition over time that you cannot indict a commander in chief. If you could, then every single commander in chief, if he lost the House, would be completely stymied, and that there would be no presidency. I think what we're going to see is the lunatics taking over the asylum for 2 years. It'll be good for the conservative movement. It'll be good for the GOP establishment and the president in 2020. But there will be a slow roll for 2 years on numerous issues. They will try to put molasses in the works for the president on his key agenda items. When it comes to national security, I'm not so sure if the Democrats are going to be as insane as they will be on other issues such as subpoenas and investigations. Because if we go back to the prior shutdown, I think they were badly burned. When the president was facing down Chuck Schumer then, they really lost that war. And at the end of the day, it was very clear to all Americans that they were choosing the illegal alien over the arming of the armed forces.
Sure.
And that did not look good. That looked very bad. So even though they're not good on national security, they know the political price for being seen as undermining national security. This goes back to the prior issue. The failure has been, in general, our ability to couch the border wall in national security terms. It is too easy to paint that as something that's xenophobic, that's uncompassionate, or what have you. By holding yesterday's meeting in one of the situation rooms in the White House, the president was very smart, because the easiest way to win this on the right is that this is a threat to all Americans. When you see the plight of Corporal Singh being murdered in California, when you see the figures for women being trafficked for the smuggling of fentanyl into the country, this is a national security issue, and that's how it has to be couched by us, by the president, by the right. If we're smart in that way, then we can protect as much as possible the national security agenda, even when people like Pelosi have been sworn in.
Dr. Gorka, before we go to the call boards, give me your sense on China, where Xi Jinping's had a rough year. He has cracked down on a lot of religious groups. He has suffered some bad press. He's had to try to consolidate power, and even folks in his own party are turning on him for the first time in recent memory. And we have very limited information on this, largely because China has a very closed press. I think this is a big feather in the president's cap. But in the meantime, you start seeing things like they're developing some of their most impressive warships, or some of their biggest, most powerful warships we've ever seen. So they continue to be hegemonic and aggressive in the Far East. Where are we with China right now?
Yeah, it's the classic dictator's dilemma. The more they gain control, the more they squeeze their grip on the people, the more there is resistance. So it's a paradox. In the last 2 years, there have been hundreds of prominent Chinese people who have been disappeared, arrested, put in prison, or at times executed because they were deemed by Xi Jinping to be potential, not actual, but potential challengers politically or otherwise to his regime. So he has been vicious as he's taken control, what is, for all intents and purposes, for life, with his change to the regulations when it comes to his position as the secretary. when it comes to the broader external environment, yeah, they have ramped things up. The Guardian wrote a piece about China landing a probe on the dark side of the moon. They just published that, I think, yesterday. This is a nation that is not going to give up on One Belt, One Road. They wish to become the hegemonic power for the 100th anniversary of their revolution. The president has pushed back. He sent a very clear message. Right now, I'm not a sinologist, but I was in the White House. I read the reports. I came around to see China as the most important strategic threat we face. I have one serious concern, and it is that their behavior speaks to them really not understanding how serious a change occurred in America when Donald Trump became president. They do not have the measure of the man yet. And as such, I fear that they may make some decisions that are destabilizing because they don't take this man seriously. And that is a problem. But time will tell. Maybe other things the president does will send the right signal that this is not a man to be trifled with. But right now, China does not understand how serious Donald Trump is about the threat that they pose to Judeo-Christian civilization.
All right, let's try to bring in a call or two to speak with Dr. G. How about Justin in Louisiana, line 2? Good morning. What's up? Can you punch in Justin? Okay, we got to start over, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning. How are y'all? So,
morning.
My question is, and I'm not very politically savvy, so this is why I'm asking the question. As a veteran, 10 years in the United States Army, following under the Commander-in-Chief during both peacetime and wartime. My question to y'all is, why can't the president, regardless of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer's vote against him and the Senate and the Congress or whatever, why can't he just reappropriate assets from, say, the Army Corps of Engineers and pull them to build the wall like he wants it? I mean, he is the commander-in-chief, and he decides what they do. So they have the largest budget. Why not just take them, put them in on the border down there and let them build the wall and be done with it? And then he gets his win, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer can fall off the face of the earth. I'll let y'all answer. I'm going to ease out. Thank y'all for taking my call.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. G.
Yeah, this is actually, within reason. This is an option completely open to the president. Eisenhower did it before with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Turn down, Justin. Thank you, guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is absolutely an option. We've had presidents in the past do it with infrastructure projects. Eisenhower used the Army Corps of Engineers. One of my team members on the new show, America First, Brandon Weichart, actually wrote an article exactly on this, so you can look that up, Brandon, Weichert. This is completely doable. Again, it has to, let's be cautious. Not all the $700 billion is fungible. The president doesn't get to do with the defense budget whatever he wants. It is appropriated with line items that have to be spent on certain things. But yes, there is a capacity for him, with the stipulation that this is a national security threat, to use DoD funding to build the wall. He's already done that in part. He's done that with certain money. So, yeah, I think this is going to be for the next 2 years, unless some great resolution occurs with the government shutdown. I think this is the path he will be taking. He will reprogram assets where he can to build the wall until we take the House back. So your caller, he said he wasn't really into political things, but he nailed it. And I think that is exactly what the president will be doing if he doesn't get his $5 billion tranche, which by the way, I looked this up yesterday. It's 0.11% of the federal budget. It's less than 1% of the federal budget is what the president wants right now to fund the wall. And to build the whole wall would only take an estimated $25 billion. So we are not talking, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but in terms of our federal budget, it truly is a drop in the ocean.
All right, Dr. G, I think we might have time for one more. Greg in Pennsylvania, can you be snappy, my friend? Line 6.
years of the lunatics running the asylum that it will be good in 2020 for the establishment Republican Party. What evidence do you have that historically Republican voters, such as myself, or voters that were not political, who were historically Democratic voters that voted for Trump, will ever vote for the Republican Party after the way the contempt we've been treated with in the last 2 years by the Republican Party itself?
Well, it's very simple. What other choice do you have? If you don't vote for them, what are you going to do? Vote for the Democrats or not vote at all? Because if you do that, if you don't vote, then you don't get to criticize anything. You can pay your taxes, but they can put up or shut up. I mean, really. I mean, I know you're angry, and I can hear it on your voice, and a lot of Republicans are. But this is a two-party system. That's what we have inherited. So even if you're angry, what do you want to do? Empower the Democrats more in 2 years' time? Not logical. If you believe in the future of the Republic, even though there are rhinos swimming through the swamp right now, Mitt Romney being, the top of the heap right at the moment, the fact is this is a two-party system. If you want to have, if you don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good, you have to vote Republican. I did it here in my district in Virginia. I held my nose. Barbara Comstock was an utter rhino. But what's your other option, my friend? You don't have one.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Greg. I appreciate it. And I don't mean to be dismissive of Greg, and I think Greg's anger and passion is valid here. But Dr. G, isn't part of being an adult that you fight for your values with all your heart, and then when you don't get your way, you kind of got to pick up the pieces and move on. You can't just take your ball and go home every time. I mean, that's not right. It's not any way to live. No,
I mean, it's just not constructive. But politics is, it's not my quote, but it's so true. Politics is the art of the possible. We are flawed creatures. The world is flawed. If you don't get everything you want, what do? Go and become a hermit in a cave and write poetry? No, we live in a world where we realize that there are limitations on everything we wish to see occur. But politics is making the best out of a bad situation, and that's what we're doing. And right now we've got a window of opportunity with Donald Trump in the White House, and we've got to exploit that as much as possible. And not voting for Republicans or voting for Democrats doesn't get us anywhere closer to the Make America Great Again agenda.
Dr. Sebastian Gorka, America First with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on Salem radio stations. Dr. G, appreciate the time. Talk to you next week.
Thank you, Alex. God bless you and the listeners.